Hey there, hope you're well. Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to do a kind of almost live coding session. I am going to pause the video when I need to do a lot of thinking, but almost live session for a Python exercise I actually received recently in an interview. And it was pretty decent exercise. It was basically invent the game of Wordle, or code it at least, and in whatever you're comfortable with. And the best language really for interviews and for a lot of DevOps work as well anyway, and cloud work, is Python. That's what I'm going to do today. I actually didn't finish it on time, and yeah, I'm not great in these situations. I get quite flustered in a pressure situation. I don't really like it, but you know, these days, more and more, you're going to have a Python exercise as the first round, and man, it's crazy. That's just what's happened to the industry. So you got to be prepared for that. I'm going to try and give it another go right now with you watching. So, you know, I've written some notes here. Let me just show you here. I'm in a folder here, directory called challenge. I've created a virtual environment. You can see that there. .m, just in case we need to import any libraries. We're going to do all our work in this single file called index.py. Here it is, create the game of Wordle. I'll put a couple of links that you can go check out yourself later on. Basically, this first one, I haven't read it, but it goes through how to do this, but I want to try this myself. There's a lot of people who have done this. There's a lot of Medium articles. Then there's another one, this GitHub link, which kind of sets it out. Again, it's got some, like this word list file that I grabbed. Let me tell you what this game is. It became famous during the pandemic, and it works like this. I'll show you a screenshot. So it works like this, right? What you do is, there is a secret word that is taken from a dictionary of common words, so there's no obscure words, and it's a secret 5-letter word, and you have 6 attempts, 6 rounds to try and guess this word, right? And it's a bit like Battleships if you've ever played that game. So what happens is, it kind of reminds me of Minesweeper as well. What happens is, with every attempt you get a feedback on the letters that you chose. Green means that you got the right letter, and it's actually in the right position as well. So you can see here, eventually the word is rebus, I think that's how you pronounce it. So on the second try, when the person actually in the first try they chose an R, and they got a yellow. That means the correct letter but in the wrong position. On the second attempt, they tried a different position, they got a green. Aha, great. Right, the correct letter, correct position, so leave that in place. And the gray means this letter is not found anywhere. So yeah, it's just like Battleships, except using letters. And this game really took off, and it's pretty simple, and you can code it. So what we're going to do is attempt to do a command line version of this, and I've written down already the requirements to save us some time. The secret word should come from a word list of common words, and this is like real life because there's so many obscure words in the dictionary that it's better to have a word list. Let me just show you this real quick. And there you go, here's a word list, and if I go all the way to the end, there's only 2,000 words here. Now, different people have different word lists, and there is an official word list. We're going to use this one, 2,000 words, and they're all in lowercase, by the way. I'm not going to have any case checking or anything like that. I'm just going to assume lowercase throughout. It's not important, really, and that's very easy to implement later. So, secret word should come from a word list, common words, and the user can have up to 6 successive guesses of the 5-letter secret word. With each guess, so obviously you're thinking now there should be a loop here, user should get feedback. Green for the correct letter in the correct position, yellow for correct letter in the wrong position, and black for the letter not in the secret word. I suppose you could say anywhere. Okay, now I put this in brackets GYB because we're not going to do colors, although that's not difficult to do. We're just going to return back G, Y, and B as values after each guess. So yeah, that's it. The first thing that I think we should do, oh, by the way, I've also got this just to remind me. This is like, I hate the word cheat sheet, but it's a kind of reminder that this was in one of my previous Python videos called Python Interview Refresher, where we went through some of the basics, some of the real basics, and also things like lists, which are Python's version of arrays, and also dictionaries and some basic operations. So I will refer to this if I need to. I'm only going to use Google and AI if I really don't know how to do something, but I'm not going to paste those requirements into AI, because there's no challenge then, right? I know it can give me immediately the right answer because plenty of people have already done this. So I think the kind of things that we're going to need to do is to definitely, if you consider like this is like this is a list here, but probably I'm going to have to take this word and put it in a list. These are just some thoughts immediately. Or I can just treat the string like a list, which I know in Python that's how strings work anyway. That you can, we may have to refer to the elements. Don't think we're going to have to do any slicing like this. It's possible we may have to, but luckily you can do all these operations also on a string as well. And I'm not sure about this, if you can do this on a string, but I'm just trying to remember that append is to add things to the end of a list. Pop is to remove things from the end. If you want to be more specific, you can insert at a particular position with insert, and you can remove with remove, etc., etc. Yeah, that is really about it. Now I do have notes in here for dictionaries. Oh, I've also got notes for loops, but I think I can remember how to do loops anyway. So and this here is dictionaries. So we got things like keys, values, and items that you can then iterate over. You can pop, or you can get individual values if given a key. You can add more key value pairs in this way, or there's also a more simple way, just simply doing it like that, which will add or update a value, and you can delete a key value pair. I think this should be enough. I have a feeling, I know already that we just need to use a list. Now I did attempt this before, remember. However, I did not complete it, and I also, they let me use AI, and I was a bit stuck, like, well, how much do I use AI? So I was almost left trying not to use the full extent of AI, and I had GitHub Copilot running, and it was giving me all these suggestions, and I couldn't paste everything in the AI, but I was kind of asking AI for things I already knew. It was a mess, a complete mess. I don't have GitHub Copilot running. I've got AI on standby down here in case I need it. I'll just show you there quickly. I've got this really basic Microsoft Copilot, which is based on GPT-4. It's nothing special. I've also got Mistral here as well. So this is a half decent AI as well. I won't use it unless I need to. What I do have on here is I do have the Python extension. So for example, if I say like my list, and I initialize that to have nothing in it, and then I say my list dot, then it's going to give me all the different methods and stuff like that. So I think that's fine. I think you would expect that to be in anyone's development environment. So I'm going to have a think and write out some pseudocode, and you'll see my thoughts in a few seconds. Alright, so I've got an update here, and before we even get to the guesses, I'm starting with the secret word part, that we need to select a random word, the secret word to be guessed, from our word list. So the first thing is that the list needs to be read into memory, into a variable, and I knew it had something to do with read or read lines, and that there was a with open part, but I couldn't remember. So what I did was I went to the AI and I asked. I mean, I think this is fine. This is the kind of thing that in the past I would have got from Stack Overflow, and it actually, Mistral gave me a few different things, although it kind of says that they're 4 different things when really it's kind of saying the same thing the whole time. So it's a little bit weird. I chose the first one because I saw this read lines, which I remember using even years ago. So if I now go back here, then you can see I've got with open, and we're going to change this to the word list.txt, and it's going to open it in read mode, if I remember correctly. That's what that means there. Open it as a file handle or something like that, and then variable lines, which is a list of strings, it says here, the file object, read lines, and then this part here is extra, and it was suggested throughout that AI result, And I remember actually coming up amongst this in the test that I had, because there's actually in this file here, right, you can't see them, but there's obviously a bunch of \n carriage returns, and you have to strip those out, or you end up getting like errors and stuff. So I remembered that. I would have to come up against it anyway, so I'm leaving this in here, and it's going to loop over all those lines, and it's going to use strip to remove new line characters. Now actually I don't know why I left that print part in there, so we should definitely take this out. We don't need to print this. So line.strip over every single line here. And then what I'm doing is a test here after. So for I in range 0 through to 3, and I had some errors here. I used a colon instead of a comma, but you know, nicely the IDE showed me. For I in range 0 through 3, print I. So print the first 4 lines, 0, 1, 2, and 3, line numbers of this word list. So saving that, let's give this a go now. Python 3 index.py, and there we go, scowl wager and tying. So if I go back here and go to the word list, and there you go, the first 3. I'm actually a little bit curious why it didn't give us the 4 lines. If I say if I say print lines, no, if I let's just leave that there. But if I go here, print lines 0, I want to see what happens here. You know, let's say I do this a few times, right? What happens? Scowl, 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 scowl. Okay. So 0, 1, and 2 are the first 0. So what is number 3 then? Now I'm kind of curious what number 3 is. Save, run it again. Swarm, 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 swarm. Okay, but the first time we didn't get swarm. Oh no, I remember now. When you do this is very Pythonic. The last is the stop value, but it's up to but not including 3. Okay, that makes sense. No problem. Let me delete this now. So that worked in the sense that we have read the lines into a variable, and we've ensured that the carriage return has been stripped. Now I need to figure out a way of randomly choosing one of the values from, or one of the what we call items or elements from that list of strings called lines. So let me figure that out. Okay, so what I've done here is I did have to go to the AI. I mean, I could have used Google, right? And I asked the AI, I said here, what is how to randomly choose a single element from a list, because that's simply what I want to do. Randomly, single element from a list. And it gives me all this information about, basically we've got to use the random module, which is part of the standard library. And then it shows all kinds of ways of doing things. But basically, as it says here, random.choice is the most concise and readable way to select a single random element. So we're going to go with that. I'm not going to go with all these other parameters and different methods. I'm going to go with the simplest thing, which is all that we need anyway. So I'll put here secret_word equals random.choice. With our parameter being this variable that contains all of the words, list of strings, and then print the secret word. So I've saved this. Let's run and see if it comes up. So we get this, and if I run it again, we should get a different one. There we go. Great. So that works. So now we've done this part here. We have yes, I should have said here, should randomly come from a word list of common words. And now we've got the secret word, and it will be compared to, oh, and by the way, I did do import random if I didn't mention that already. Now we need to do the whole guessing thing. Now what I'm going to do here is I will write a function, or start writing a function and think about this loop. So let me think about that. I'm going to write some pseudocode to come back to you. Okay, so I've written some pseudocode. I just want to remind you how this game works, just in case you've forgotten. There is a secret word, in this case it's rebus, and the user has up to 6 rounds of guesses to try and guess that secret word, and they get reported back green if it's the right letter in the right position. They get reported back yellow if it's the right letter but the wrong position, and otherwise they get gray, which for our purpose I'm going to call that black, because gray and green are the same letter, so I'm going to call this black. We're not going to show colors back, we're going to show letters. And just before I show you that pseudocode, I want to show you a kind of special condition which we are going to have to take care of. It's worth bearing in mind now. We can defer it to later, but look at this. How does Wordle deal with repeated letters, right? So here's the thing, right, that I want you to pay attention to. And if there's a letter that only appears once in the secret that you're trying to guess, but you actually use a letter twice, then what happens? Then what happens is this. You'll get one of the guesses will be green or yellow, depending on whether you guess the position exactly. It would be green, or you got the wrong position, then it would be yellow. And the other one would be gray. Okay? So that's kind of interesting, because we're going to have to account for, let's say the secret contains one instance of the letter E, but our guess has the letter E in two different places, and we don't guess in two different positions, but neither of those guesses, none of those guesses are in the right position. But what it will do is it'll mark one of them yellow and the other one gray. So yeah, that's kind of a special case. I mean, it tells the person doing the puzzle that there's only one of them, but I'm not sure that there's a rule on which one should be yellow and which one should be gray. They both guess the wrong position, okay? But one of them has to turn yellow to show that, well, this letter does exist in the secret. You had two goes at trying to guess the position, but you got it wrong for both. So I'm not really sure how. I think, it's perfectly fine just to say, like, the first instance of the letter in your guess, make it yellow, and the other one make it gray. But we've got to take this into account. It is a bit of an edge case, but we still have to get this right. Because what I'm thinking is, the danger is that when we check every single letter in our guess against the secret, and let's say the secret, like I said, has one letter A, but our guess has, let's say it has four of the same letter, right? But we don't get the right position. Then it could potentially have all of them yellow, 4 yellows or 2 yellows or 3 yellows, even though there's only one. So we can only show one that's in the actual secret, and the rest have to be gray. So we got to bear that in mind when we do the check. We kind of have to look back. After the first yellow, anything else, to mark it gray means we have to remember that we already marked one yellow, how many instances there were. So that's something we've got to take into account in our logic. So sorry to kind of divert, but it is important. Now here is the pseudocode that I've got. It doesn't include that logic yet, but it does have this. We're going to need a loop, because this represents the multiple guesses, and it's going to be 6 times, or possibly until the secret has been guessed, right? It will be less than 6, well, for sure. So I'm not sure how to implement this yet. It could just be a for loop, run it 6 times, or it could be a while loop. I'm going to think about that. Anyway, inside the loop, the user is going to input the guess. I'm going to have to Google this. In fact, I kind of already have. I'll explain that later. This is simple. User input stored as a variable, a string variable, as I mentioned way back. And compare the guess, which is a variable, to the secret, which is also a variable. Both string variables. We're going to loop over. I'm going to use the guess as the reference, right? So we're going to loop over the guess variable letter by letter, or element by element, in this string. And then there's 3 tests that correspond to the 3 results. We're going to say if the guess letter is equal to the secret letter at the same position, the same index, then we want a G as a result. And this, I think, we're going to have to store, by the way, as an entirely separate variable. We're going to call this a result variable or something like that, which makes the most sense. Otherwise, if it's the right guess letter, if the guess letter is equal to any of the secret letters, then we're going to say Y. Now you might say, well, what happens if we hit if we say any of the secret letters, well, it might actually be green. We might actually have the right position. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say else if. I'm going to say, it's not going to be the same condition as this. That's why I'm using else if. Otherwise, I would have just used a regular if. But the reason is I don't want to have to check any other position except the one that we already checked against. It's much easier if I can just say any of those, but not the same case as before. I hope you get my drift there. And otherwise, if there's no guess letter matching anything, then give it a B to say, that it wasn't, the letter that you chose wasn't in anywhere in the secret word. And then finally print the result. And then this should just keep, eventually it should just keep looping, but it will run this thing here. I'll put this thing, and here's the exception. If the result is GGGGG, all good, you've guessed the secret word, then congratulate and end the game. So probably what I'm going to do here is I am going to just quit the loop. If you look down here at my reminder here, I do have here at the bottom, I can't remember if it's continue or break. It's break. So break will just force break the loop. Okay. And that should do the job. So I'm even going to put in here break as a reminder. So let me come back. I'm going to carry on and come back and show you what I've got. And obviously I'm going to start with the top. Hey, so I'm back. So I've made some progress I want to share with you. So by the way, this first part up here with opening the word list and stripping out the new line, getting a secret word randomly, I am going to make that its own function later on. Probably going to call it game init, game initialize, or something like that. But I made some changes. Now, something I've done temporarily is I've just made the secret word fixed every time, just for testing purposes. We know this works, but just for testing, this is going to make my life a bit easier. I made up a word. It's actually a buddy of mine, his name Nigel, so I just did that for the time being. Then I made this loop here. So for playing round for round in the range 0 through to 6. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it should do 6 rounds. Then, first of all, assign as a variable the result of using this this function, which is just built into Python, called input. It's going to say input a 5-letter word. Store it as this variable guess word. I did have to look that up. I asked the GPT, but that's easy enough to Google anyway. So, and then I'm going to loop over guess word for every letter in guess word. And then I realized, well, I'm going to need the index as well, and I'm going to need this enumerate thing. So this is a thing in Python where if you need access to the index, you need to not just put for letter in guess word. You need to actually put for index letter in enumerate guess word. Sorry about all these tooltips popping up. So then I'm going to say if the letter, that's this row here, right? If the letter that we're on in the guess word, the current letter, starting with the first one, if the letter is equal to the letter in the secret word, so secret word square brackets index, then result variable, it's a new variable, which by the way I initialized here, which I'm not sure if I have to do in Python, but I did it anyway. Then the result variable at that same position, so from the first letter it's going to be index 0, then let that be equal to a G. Okay, so if you get the right letter and it's in the right position, the same index, then we mark that as a G. And I'm not going through the other one yet, the yellow case. I'm just saying otherwise, just mark it as a B, because I just want to test this. And then print result is whatever the result. So that's where I'm up to. I've actually had a look. I want to show you what happened. There's no errors here so far, but if I run this, we do. So the secret word is Nigel, and I'm just going to say Nigel. I want to score all green, and we got an error here, and it says the type error that the string object does not support item assignment. Oh, okay, I see what it means. It doesn't like me doing result index equals G. So let me check this. Okay, so you know what? I did ask the AI. I mean, I could have Googled this before AI, right? I said, I basically want to know why does string not support item assignment. And it says here, it talks about, of course, strings are immutable, unlike lists. So yeah, there's a few, if you look at one of the suggested ways to do it, to use slicing, I think this is pretty nasty. I think this is better, although I wanted to avoid this at first, convert the string to a list and then back to a string. But you know what? This is actually the best way, I think. So I'll show you how I achieved that here. So what I did is I converted well, first of all, I created a list that was called, I put some default characters in there. Now they should all get overwritten when we write the result, but I put that there. It's just like a kind of error handling whilst we're developing, and to be honest, I'll probably just leave it like that anyway. And yeah, what I did was I created a list out of a starting string, and then here when we're creating the result, then the actual result variable is a list, as we've initialized it over here earlier, list of this string. And then at the very end we convert the string back to a list. Sorry, we convert the list back to a string. We do that with dot join, which is a quote to indicate that there's no delimiter. And I had to use double quote because these quotes are inside other quotes, so I had to differentiate them. And let me show you how that turned out. So if I run this, and if I do Nigel, then it gives me straight up the all green. And if I just break out of this, no error handling yet for that, and if I run that again and I say like N and then I don't know, something else random, then it gives back a G and the rest a B. So far this is working nicely on a really basic level, and now we need to add the use case for the Y, and also I need to take into account that special case when there's a doubling up. So let me work on that and come back to you. Alright, so I'm back. Now all I've done is add this one extra line, and it's for the case where you guess the correct letter but it's in the incorrect position. So I said elif, you know, else if, otherwise if. Remember this is if you've already found the correct letter in the correct position, then it won't execute this row that we've just added now. So I've said here, if the letter is anywhere in the secret word, so instead of being at first I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to do a for loop and check every single position in secret word, and then of course you don't have to do that in Python. You can just say letter in secret word, and it will see if it's in the entire you know, all of those elements, and then return a Y. And of course, because this is else if and not just if, it's not going to include this situation here. Okay, so let me show you. So I'm going to run this again, and you know, just to show you, if we do Nigel, it's going to show all green. Now if I do this in reverse order, LEGIN, and there we go, we get Y, 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 and the one in the middle, because it's the same when you reverse it, that is in the correct position. So this works really, really cool. Now back to the code. Now obviously, you know, I can tidy this up, I can refactor this into functions and stuff. We're almost there, right? I just need to add that if the result was found, then congratulate and you know, break out of the loop and end the game. But we need to take into account this special case that we were talking about earlier with repeated letters. So this is what I'm going to look at next. So I'm just bringing you back to here. Before I got doing any coding, I decided to do some tests just to see what the output was like. Of course, this is the kind of thing that if you're doing test-driven development, you should be writing these tests, writing out assertions, etc. But I'm kind of doing it the old school way. So here's what I did, right? I said, secret word, of course, we know it's Nigel, right? And what if it's all ends, then G, Y, Y, Y? That's what we expect, because this first G, it was done on the first if, and then the rest happens on the next, the elif. And then I said, well, what about if we choose another letter like E? What happens then? And look at this, it comes out pretty good, because obviously I kind of hadn't realized this. Obviously, it's going to mark that G first, and then the rest are going to come up as Y, because that's our logic. That the if. The one that we worked on first, the first case, is looking for a complete, exact, perfect match, the green case. And that has actually taken care of it. By putting that first in our code here, right up top, the first clause, we've actually solved this problem. Now then I wanted to just make sure, so what if we have 3 N's and 2 I's, okay? Then we should get a green for the first one, but the I's are in the wrong position. And look here, we get the green, and then we get the Y because it's a second N, okay? And then we get all the rest as Y's. And actually, I thought, as I record this, I thought that this was all working well so far, but actually it wasn't working right from the beginning even, because look here, right? It says here that we got the green for the N, but then the rest were Y's, which implies that all of our other guesses that there are multiple N's but all in the wrong position. Obviously, that's not true. There aren't multiple N's. There's only one N here. The green is fine. The same for the E. We should have black for the rest of them. We don't want Y's. And the same here. If I have 3 N's and 2 I's, then we would expect 1 green because the N in Nigel. That's correct. But the rest should not be Y's because we don't want any more Y's being reported for the N's. So there are no more N's. And for the I's, well, we should only expect 1 I because we know there's 1 I in the secret. So it doesn't really matter. I'm not sure what the exact rules of the game are, but we want one of these to be a Y. And instead we've got 2, which kind of implies that there's 2 I's floating around the secret, which is not true. So I definitely need to fix this. You know, I thought I was so close to the end, but I've actually realized, I don't know for sure, but I just had an epiphany. I think it might be easier if, instead of comparing the guess and then instead of starting with the guess word as the reference and then checking against the secret word, I think it may be easier if we start with the secret word and then check against the guess word. And the reason I say that is because we will go through every single letter, every element of the secret word, and if we and as and when we go through it, I think what we can do is we can, I might have to use pop or something, but we can make sure that we don't sort of repeat ourselves. It's weird. I've had an epiphany, but I can't fully explain it. But I think this is the way to go. I'm going to have a go at rewriting this now and come back to you. Hey, I'm back. So I want to just show you my thinking and then show you the code that I've just written. The big problem I've got here is, right, we used the word N 5 times. We know that there's only 1 in the secret. And the first one, great, it's a G for green. We kind of after that don't want to have to deal with N anymore, but instead it says, oh yeah, look, you know, this guess is out of position, this is out of position, this is out of position, this is out of position. That is not something that's supposed to happen in Wordle. It's supposed to show gray or black instead. So we kind of want to be done. If we guess correctly and get a green, we want to be done with N. We kind of don't want it to be in the secret word anymore. And it's the same as well with the Y. Once we've done a Y, we want to be done with it. We don't want to report a Y again for the same letter. That's the problem that I've got here, right, with NI, NI, and then X. The N and the I should report back green, great. But the N and the I again, we don't want the yellow, okay? And it's even the same up here, N, 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 I, I. We know that we've got 1 that's a green. The N, N, we want to be done with it. We don't want 2 more Y's. And then the I, we know that I is out of position, but we only want to know that once. Instead, it gets reported twice. So both for when we get a G and when we get a Y, we kind of want to be done with that. And if I show you my code now, I'll show you how I've done that. So, by the way, one of the first things I did, right, just because I've been iterating over a string, I'm like, you know what, I'm done with this. I don't want any more string errors. I've now turned both the secret word and the guess word, I've turned them into lists. So you can see here secret word is a list of Nigel, and then also here the guess word is a list of whatever we input. Let's just get working in lists. It just makes life a lot easier, because it seems that a string can be used like a list but not all the time. Let's just work in a list. Just going to make life easier. What I've done here, right, remember I said that instead of looping through the guess word, we're going to loop through the secret word instead now. So I've copied this up. I've copied this entire block and then modified it up here. We're looping through the secret word instead, and we're comparing it against the guess word. Now what I've done is I've instead of just one liner for the case of G, a one liner for the case of Y, and also for the case of B, I've now started using indentation, because there's an additional thing that I want to do. It's pretty much the same, swapping around guess and secret, but I'm also popping out whenever it triggers the condition. If the letter is correct and the position is correct, then make it a G. Or if the letter is correct but it's in the wrong position, make it a Y. In both cases, what I'm saying here is pop out of the secret word, as if we guess correctly an N or an I, correct position or not, pop them out of the word. We want it so that it's not there anymore. Okay. Now I have a feeling already like this is going to fail. I think I've just realized now that we may have an issue here with comparing like for like index. So let me double check that. I think I'm on the right road though, that we need to pop this out, or if not pop, we need to at least replace it. So I've just realized that. Let me go check this code again. And yeah, as expected, I've done the test. I put in the guess Nigel. The first letter it got correct. It doesn't recognize I is in the right place, although it gives a Y. And then look at this, it's got this XX, which is the original setting I've got for this result variable. I'm quite glad I did that now. It's good for this kind of debugging. So it's clearly because I've done the pop, it's made it an issue. If I go back here, I was like, well, I popped it, so now the indexes are not going to line up. But maybe they will, because, you know, is it all set when you create the loop? I don't know, but I think pop is the wrong thing. I need to replace this now. I need to keep at all times all words being 5 letters and not start popping letters out. So let me do that. I'm going to choose some kind of neutral value instead. Alright, I'm back. So I have made great progress. I just want to show you the progress. So if I run this now, if I type Nigel, it's as before, all G, again all G, and if I now type in like 5 N's, then there's only 1 G. Same with 5 I's, only 1 G. If I do N-I-N-I and then an O, we've got 2 G's and the rest are B's. If I do an N-N-N-I-I, then we've got 1 G and 1 Y representing one of the I's, and the rest are B's. So this is really, really good. I just want to show you how I achieved this. So instead of popping, what I did was, because popping was reducing the variables and of the secret word, and in the end that was causing that problem before. So instead I replaced it with just some nominal value, in this case an uppercase X. So I just literally now made a quick correction. So what I've done is, instead of popping, I've instead just replaced the character in the secret word, so that way it won't recheck something that's already been seen before. If it's seen an N and it gave it a G or a Y, then it will take that N, take that already given a result for out of our secret word. But we need to keep the length the same, so that's why we're using replace. We're not using pop. I was originally using X, but I just realized, well, what if the secret word contains an X, and this ain't gonna work, right? So I'm now changed it to a number, because there will be no numbers. We're only using words, and this works. Now, one big problem I had with this method, that actually I had to spend a lot of time debugging it, is that when you replace it here, when you go back and it runs the loop again, and you put in your next guess. So if I did a Nigel, I would get all G, correct guess. If I then did a Nigel again, it would still see the secret as all zeros, and it would not give us a full score again, or even, I mean, full score should end the game, but let's say I had only a partial, not full win, it wouldn't repeat that. It would see the secret as something completely new. So that was not working. And what I realized in Python is, even if I said that the secret word is another variable that we already had, I actually had an intermediary different list variable, you can't say that the list is the list that you had before. That list is dynamic. It would have changed already. So I had to do this now. I had to make selected word equals whatever random word is chosen, and then recreate the list from that word. What you can't do is, you can't up here, we had this list that first list that we create called secret word. You can't say like, okay, I'm going to call this master secret now. I'm going to assign secret word to master secret, another list that we're going to refer back to, and in the loop we're going to say secret word is now the master list. That won't work. You have to recreate the list entirely, in this case from the string. And that has worked. That's been the most elegant way. I looked at another way of using a deep copy that I managed to Google, use AI, and I thought, man, I don't want to use another library. I don't want to use this deep copy. I think this is the best way. For whatever reason, that's just the way that lists work. I'm sure it's got advantages as well, but it wasn't what I expected. But that's cool. This now works. Let me show you here. So if we run this again, then if we do Nigel, we get GGG. If I do it again, we still get that. If I do NI, NI, and O, then we get the first two correct, and then it's not repeated after the N and the I, because there's only one of each. If I do N, 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 I, I, G, Y, B, 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 and now this works even if there were X's in it, etc., because I just made that quick change. So this is fantastic. We just have to now end the game if we get a perfect score before all 6 tries. We have to tidy some things up. I might make a few functions that'll just tidy it up as well. So I'm going to do that now and come straight back to you. Alright, I think we're pretty much done. So what I also did was I added this thing to say, congrats, you won, ending the game, break out of the loop, so don't do any more rounds for guessing. And I also added this thing here to say, if you go through all the rounds but you haven't won, then instead give a message to say, you've had 6 attempts, no correct guess, sorry, game over. And I added also a few, carriage returns just to space things out a bit more. Now, I did have an issue as well, where, sorry about that, I just took out something I was using during debugging, but yeah, I had a big issue. Do you remember that we had a test secret word that was Nigel? Well, as soon as I changed it back to be a random one of those lines from the file, I started getting lots of errors, and I couldn't work it out because I thought that I'd stripped out that new line character, that could be it, but when I took a look, I printed out the list, that was still there. So the thing, that the line.strip, that was not working. And yeah, I was trying to figure it out. And in the end, what I've decided to do, I was thinking about maybe popping out of the array, but in the end what I decided to do was right up at the point where we get the choose the word and give it this string a variable assignment selected word, I decided thereafter wherever we're going to use it to slice that string, and what this does is it will knock off the final character in the string, which has an index of -1, so everything up to but not including -1. So I've made reference to it there, and I think yeah, I also made reference to it there as well. So apart from that, everything else seems to work. And I didn't actually condense this into different functions, because at the end of the day, this is only about, what, 15 lines or something like that? Maybe a bit more than that, but we could condense it as functions, but then we're not going to really pass any parameters. We're not really expecting to change too much. I suppose I could do, but this is not an incredibly long program. In the end, it's pretty nice what we've got here, and it's fairly readable. Maybe I could comment it slightly more. I did put this comment here because I thought maybe it's not clear from the code what's going on, that we have to reinitialize that to overwrite those X markers. But yeah, I think this is great. Let's go have a look, and I want to show you the final result. So here we are. Let's run this, and the secret word is chirp. And oh, I also put in here that it will take the index of the loop, so it tell you the round number. So attempt number 1, and let's just say it's CH, I don't know, T, and there you go. It got 2 of them right. What if we do like backwards, PRIHC, and you see it got the middle one right. What if we do I don't know, HCRPI? Then you know, we got all the letters right, just in the wrong order. And I don't know, what if I do XXXXX? You know, nothing right. What if I do YYYYY? Just want to show you that if we do TTTTT, and it says 6 attempts, no correct guess, sorry, game over. Now in the final game, I suppose what I could do is maybe hide the secret word, and potentially should reveal it as well, just so that when people get close, and I don't know if that's how the game works, if you get the reveal, but I think that would be a nice thing, you know, if people get close, to at least show them what it was. And let me also show you, if I do this again and we guess it correctly, then it will say congrats, you won, and it ends the game. So yeah, anything else I think is pretty minor. I hope you enjoyed this. Let's just do some admiring of that code. In the end, we didn't have to use any external libraries, which was nice, and the only library that we did need was random. And you know, there is a way to kind of pseudo-random, maybe make my own function to randomly choose a line. But it really wouldn't have been as good as just using the standard library and import random. So I'm fine with that. I like this very much in the end. I'm sure there's a way to improve this, but I certainly don't think this is really bad at all. I think this is kind of crazy to expect someone to be able to complete in an exercise for a DevOps engineer role. I think even if you're a seasoned developer, day in, day out, not a DevOps engineer, then, you know, doing a lot of leak code, and this is not an advanced leak code problem, but I think if you're at that kind of level, then you probably could do it in time. But for an average DevOps engineer, I don't know, you tell me. I really don't think that they're going to get this done inside of 45 minutes. And remember, this has probably taken me, I don't know what time I started doing this. I've obviously been pausing the video. I think it took me a good 2 to 3 hours to get this far. So I'm happy with it, but there's no way I could have. I came kind of close when I did this in the but I was using a lot of AI to assist me, and you know, really what I came up with was pretty much no different to just pasting those requirements into AI and giving me an instant answer. So I was kind of taking a lot of shortcuts, and it wasn't demonstrating any of my own ability. So I'm not sure what they were expecting out of that test. I don't think a normal DevOps engineer would have been able to do it, and if they could, then in my opinion they should just focus on development and not be a DevOps engineer. That's my humble opinion. You let me know what you think. Hope you enjoyed this walkthrough, this live coding walkthrough, almost live, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and check out the other videos, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.